In our discussion about media management, we've been talking about the key role metadata plays in the processing and eventual consumption, in fact, of digital media assets. How important is a configurable data model to the media management process in broadcast organisations? Tony?
I think a lot of talk has been made about, and we see it a lot of the time in RFPs coming out, where people turn around and say they want a fully configurable data model, they want to be able to configure it all themselves, etc. And that's okay, but if we go back in time and we look at some of the systems that were developed, Media 360, for instance, was a toolkit, if you like, where people could develop their own data models within an environment, and that didn't succeed. I think in the broadcast and media business, there is a common set of metadata that everybody has. So there is a base set of metadata, and that's absolutely fine. And most good media asset management systems, content management systems will support that, whether it be for playout, etc. I do think there is a requirement for an extensible data model. In other words, a data model that can be extended upon from a base system. We are seeing that especially in the archive market, in the cataloguing market, where people are trying to catalogue content. So, for instance, content such as the Blue Planet or Discovery's content, some of the factual, where a significant amount of content is captured that isn't used in the first production, if you like. And people want to go and find more content, so cataloguing, so you need an extensible data model. And the archives, obviously, I think with the amount of content they've got and the amount of different subjects they may have, then an extensible data model is required. But I think in general, the broadcast business, there is a base set of metadata that if your content management system doesn't support, then you're not going to get anywhere anyway.
Peter?
I would agree in that it's very important to try and keep that base set of metadata as standard as possible. And the worst thing is when two people refer to the same piece of metadata with different names. It's just painful for everybody. So I think having a standard base set of metadata, we've kind of fallen into that naturally, which is good. But I think that the ability to extend to it is absolutely critical. I mean, we can't predict today what information people are going to need to store against material tomorrow. It's just impossible. But I think it is important to make sure that there's no, if you like, massive creep growth explosion of meaningless metadata. So making sure that it's not just too easy for an operator to add another field just because they feel like on a particular day, because as soon as that starts to happen, you will end up with a real mess. So I think it's important to make sure that extensibility is very well managed within an organisation.
Yeah, I tend to agree with both speakers that we need some form of standardisation. Otherwise, as just been said, we end up with looking for the same thing in two different types of fields, effectively. And I think also that, yes, on top of that, we need some form of extendable model, because there are always going to be special cases, whether it's archives or something like Discovery or something like that, where they've got vast amounts of other information. So I think configurability on a one-by-one station user is a bad idea. There's not only the fact that you'll never find anything unless you've worked there for a long period of time, and there's also the issue then of staff movement. People leaving company A and going to company B, they've got to be retrained right from the very beginning again. Whereas if there is some form of standardisation, everybody knows that you're looking for a particular thing. You put this into the media asset management.
Well, is there an effective approach to standardisation in media management that's available now?
There are already some standards around. There's a Dublin protocol for media management which goes way, way back, which is one way of approaching it.
But I think the problem with a lot of the standards, like the Dublin Core and what was the BBC SMEF data model, is in many cases they're designed either by committee or for a very specific organisation. And therefore there is not a view across multiple organisations, and there are people that are looking at their own requirements. Therefore, that's why I think, you know, going back to the having a standard base set of data, metadata, and then being able to make that extensible in a standardized manner, because getting back to the issue of people putting things into databases, adding fields, etc. One of our clients, we did a data migration of their content from one system, from an old in-house developed system to our MediaFlex system. And when we came to the audio description information, you know, left mix, right mix, etc., they had 8,400 different permutations of it, because it was a free text field and people could put in what they wanted. And that, again, is as much an issue as a standardized data model or a flexible data model. I think even when you go to a flexible data model or extensible data model, you still need to standardize out on the field input within that. So I think it's not as easy as some people make out, and I think the industry is moving to the point that things are changing every day, so it needs to be extensible.
But it's the standards. Who sets the standards? If Tony's already just said that they're designed by a committee or one particular major broadcaster, if they're set at that level, then they may or may not work. And I'm not sure there is the right forum worldwide. We've got EBU, we've got SMTV and other such bodies. But again, you're going back to the whole thing being developed by a committee. At the other side of the fence, it could be configured, designed, agreed by manufacturers, but then they're all going to have their own view on how or what to suit their product, to suit their sales force, their market, all of that stuff. So I'm not quite sure about this standardisation.
I think I would tend to agree with all of that in some respects, in that it is very, very difficult to try and get people to agree on how these things are stored. But I think largely, I mean, the quite nice thing about our industry is that largely the sort of relationship between material and, you know, for example, most material is produced as part of a series. Those series are part of a program. So the relationship between material and its sort of parent sort of objects and so on is quite standardised already. So we're just fallen into that kind of way of working. And so in some respects, we are naturally progressing to quite a standard way of working and referring to content just naturally.